do it on DBX, but who knows? Arcadian PNG says, thanks for being the best show on YouTube. Oh, thank you. I still remember the screw attack days. Do you remember the point when you thought, okay, let's tone down the gore?
Not really. I mean,
I,
we talked
well,
about it.
there's a couple of points where it was more like we need to find out when the gore is appropriate.
Yeah,
I know what this is referencing, because when death metal started, first of all, the internet was just a completely different place, right?
Yeah.
And so there was this question in my mind when I was first creating death metal of, is excessive gore part of the joke? Right? Should we make this a show where things get really gory, like to an absurd degree, to be funny? And when it started, it wasn't that way. Not necessarily because I had an answer to that, but because I couldn't necessarily do it. Right? Like I was literally learning animation as I was making the show. But then I tried a little bit with the Ninja Turtles Battle Royale, and people didn't like that. People didn't like it.
It was so good.
Well, Ben and I were laughing our asses off.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Like, we're like, this will be so funny. And everyone was like,
him. It was like stabbed him for 10 minutes. It's so funny.
Yeah. So it didn't go over very well. So I think, regardless of what my own opinion was, the answer had been made for me. We should probably tone, like, the gore is not going to be a main part of every single episode. That being said, it didn't necessarily completely change from the idea that like gore should be included until later. And I think it was probably Pokemon versus Digimon where we were like, yeah, we should probably make sure that the gore fits the tone of the matchup and not just like is just a thing we can always do. Because essentially the idea was it's like a blanket rule that like any matchup can have gore. Any matchup can get super violent. Any matchup can have a devastating death because we don't want to play favoritism or whatever. But that's not the best way to go about it.
It's also adds to stakes, right? Like you're watching this and you're like, oh, my favoriteest guy ever could end up being like turned into hamburger. I really
torn
hope
to
that doesn't
shreds
happen.
and bloodily torn apart.
It's always a possibility.
Then you get a matchup where it really makes sense, like Saberwolf and Liam's just like, I'm gonna go ham with the gore.
I see his guts, and he's gonna eat his guts. He's gonna shit the guts out. And he's gonna fucking strangle him.
Yeah.
So it's when appropriate. Your boy goes.